Tonight, persona non grata. Canada expels a Chinese diplomat accused of threatening a Canadian MP. A consulate official ordered out.
It shouldn't have taken this long.
Repercussions here and overseas.
We will not tolerate any form of foreign interference in our internal affairs.
A financial and military assist for fire-ravaged Alberta.
This is such a vast area that this fire has consumed.
The damage, the ongoing danger, and the pleas for support. Plus, bracing for a busy travel season.
We are ready to take legal strike action or be locked out at that point.
From a protest by WestJet pilots to a push at Pearson to control the chaos.
Our baggage systems are more resilient.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Sandy Ronaldo.
Good evening. Tensions between Canada and China are strained once again tonight after Ottawa sent a Chinese diplomat packing. The man is no longer welcome in this country after allegedly targeting a Conservative MP and his family overseas. The move comes after growing pressure on the Trudeau government to act. And in response tonight, China says relations between the two countries are, quote, seriously violated. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
In a rare move, the government expelled a diplomat.
The government of Canada has declared the individual in question today, a diplomat from China, Mr. Zhao Wei, persona non grata.
The expulsion of Zhao Wei comes 1 week after the Globe and Mail reported that CSIS had warned in 2021 that Conservative MP Michael Chong was being targeted. Zhao was allegedly involved in intimidating Chong's family in Hong Kong after the parliamentarian spearheaded a motion to declare China's treatment of its Uyghur population as a genocide.
My hope is that this sends a clear message to authoritarian states that these kinds of activities are completely incompatible with being a diplomat in this country, and that it actually leads to the diminishment of these activities on Canadian soil.
In a tweet, the Foreign Affairs Minister said, "We will not tolerate any form of interference in our internal affairs." Yet it still took a week to expel Zhao. The government says it only found out about the 2-year-old CSIS warning after media reports.
How can parliamentarians feel that this government is acting in their best interest when the government sat on this information for 2 years?
1 hour after Zhao's expulsion was announced, Beijing signaled its intent to retaliate. The Chinese side will take resolute countermeasures. We urge the Canadian side to step back from the brink. This international affairs expert says it's likely China will expel Canadian diplomats.
I guess the next step is they're probably going to declare persona non grata a couple of Canadian diplomats, and then we'll see what happens, because these things have a tendency to escalate, and whether the Chinese decide to add trade sanctions, we'll see.
Following question period, the Conservatives put forward a motion to expel all Chinese diplomats responsible for, quote, affronts to democracy, and renewed calls for a public inquiry. And Sandy, only the Liberals voted against the motion.
Okay, Judy, thank you. Help is on the way for Alberta, where raging wildfires have forced tens of thousands from their homes. Premier Danielle Smith asked the Prime Minister today for more support to fight the fires, and he agreed to send in the troops. CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier now with promises given on a day some residents got to go home.
A friendly welcome greeted Edson residents as an evacuation order was lifted.
It's nice. I just wanted to come home.
The overall wildfire situation has improved, according to officials, with rain and cooler temperatures across much of the province.
It's a much needed chance to make progress on some of these powerful, challenging wildfires. But we're not out of the woods yet.
The help from nature didn't come soon enough for many, including this Brazeau County farmer. He lost his home and other buildings and his livestock.
There's not an awful lot left here, but there is enough to start again, and I'm more than thankful and gracious that we're all okay.
And in Drayton Valley and other communities, the danger has not passed. Though the town has been largely spared so far, an evacuation order is still in place.
This fire could become very active again in a flip of a switch.
About 24 fires are considered out of control. Firefighters have been brought in from other provinces, and Alberta is requesting more, and military help is also on the way.
We'll be working to make sure that we're supporting Albertans right across the province as necessary, as we always do.
And today the province took the rare step of asking volunteers to join the effort.
I would like to make a call out to anyone who is trained and qualified in firefighting.
Alberta is also providing cash to evacuees, $1,250 per adult, $500 per child. Dozens of homes and buildings have been destroyed across the province, but there's no tally on exactly how many. Provincial officials expect to have a better idea in the coming days. For now, they say the focus is on protecting lives. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Parkland County, Alberta.
Now, Alberta's premier is also in the middle of an election campaign where she apologized today after a 2021 video surfaced where she compared those who got the COVID vaccine to Nazi followers.
And that's the test here, is we've seen it. We have 75% of the public who say, not only hit me, but hit me harder and keep me away from those dirty unvaxxed.
In a statement, Smith says she was against vaccine mandates, but that the horrors of the Holocaust are without precedent, adding, "I apologize for any offensive language used." As for the wildfire situation in northeastern BC, it appears to be under control, but anticipated warm weather may add to the risk of more breakout flames and flooding. Evacuation orders are still in effect for a number of communities in the interior. Officials are keeping an eye on snowmelt and the risk of rivers overflowing. Well, the risk of travel chaos is starting to look like a sure thing as Canadians make plans to take to the skies for the Victoria Day holiday. First, there were staff shortages, now a labor dispute, as CTV's Heather Wright reports.
More than 300 WestJet pilots stood outside Terminal 3 at Pearson International Airport this afternoon, with similar pickets happening in Calgary and Vancouver, ahead of a possible strike next week.
We are ready to take legal strike action or be locked out at that point, but we are still hoping to reach a deal.
The union says it's losing pilots who are taking better paying jobs at other airlines, particularly in the U.S. They want more money, job security, and better scheduling.
We are some of the lowest paid in North America, if not the world.
In a statement, WestJet says it is committed to listening to our pilots' concerns while achieving an agreement that is competitive within Canada's airline industry. The labor unrest comes as airlines and airports try to bounce back after a year of travel turmoil, where long waits and lost luggage seem to be the rule, not the exception. Pearson Airport, ranked among the worst in the world for delayed flights in 2022, has hired 10,000 new employees ahead of the busy summer travel season.
Almost 22% more employees compared to last summer.
Air Canada continues to operate at 90% of its pre-pandemic schedule, but said in a statement that it has more people on staff than in summer 2019, and this should further help with resiliency. WestJet says it plans to hire 2,000 more people this year.
It could be nasty.
But industry experts warn hiring may not be enough with so many variables, from ambitious scheduling to a shortage of air traffic controllers that can lead to delays.
As much as Pearson and the airports want to make sure this doesn't happen again, we don't get a repeat, there might be some repeats.
The first real test will come next week ahead of the Victoria Day long weekend, which could coincide with a WestJet pilot strike, with a deadline for an agreement set for next Tuesday. Sandy.
Okay, Heather, thank you for this. Air raid sirens sounded across Ukraine overnight as Russia launched one of the biggest drone and missile strikes in weeks. In the capital, Kyiv, at least 5 people were injured as the country's air defense system hit back at missile after missile. In Odessa, a Russian missile targeted Ukraine's Red Cross warehouse. The strikes come as the Kremlin prepares to celebrate tomorrow's victory holiday over Nazi Germany. Police in Brownsville, Texas, have laid manslaughter charges against the SUV driver who plowed into people near a shelter for migrants. The crash Sunday morning killed 8 and injured 10 others as they waited at a bus stop.
The SUV ran a red light, lost control, flipped on its side, and struck a total of 18 individuals.
During a court appearance today, 34-year-old George Alvarez had his bail set at over $4 million. Investigators are still looking into whether the crash was intentional. Well, troubling new details are emerging about a gunman who unleashed terror at a mall in Texas over the weekend. The heavily armed shooter opened fire on innocent shoppers, killing 8 people. Now police are trying to piece together a motive and have come across extremist and racist social media postings. CTV's Tom Walters reports.
Families still grieving for the victims of one mass shooting rallied in the shadow of another at the Texas legislature today.
I'm angry, and I'm not going to give up.
But pleas to stop the bloodshed come just as the state reels from more of it.
It was horrifying.
Opening fire at a mall in Allen, Texas, Saturday. 33-year-old Mauricio Garcia. He was killed by police, but leaves a trail pointing to mental illness, racism, and right-wing extremism.
It shouldn't be surprising to anyone that we're seeing that this shooter engaged in anti-Semitic or racist, white supremacist sort of posts.
His rampage killed 8 and wounded 7 others.
It's pretty horrific what I saw.
Stephen Spainhauer found a young child alive under a mother's body.
There was so much blood on the child, I couldn't tell the sex. I just asked, "Are you okay?"
Last May, 19 children and 2 adults were killed in Uvalde, Texas. The gunman, an 18-year-old, with an assault rifle he bought legally. At the state legislature today, parents of Uvalde victims got what they were after. A committee voted in favor of a bill that would raise the minimum age for buying an assault rifle to 21.
The motion for vote.
But if that was a symbolic victory, it may be a hollow one. The bill is still unlikely to pass or ever become law in Texas. The Uvalde massacre was less than a year ago. Since then, there have been another 46 mass shootings in Texas alone. Sandy?
Tom Walters, thank you. The fight against gun violence in Canada was behind a promise from Ottawa today, with more money heading to the provinces for policing and prevention. The announcement comes in the middle of a political battle over new gun control legislation. Here is CTV's Kevin Gallagher.
Gang-style killings have nearly doubled over the past decade in Canada's largest cities.
You know, violent crime waxes and wanes from time to time, but clearly the ability to have a presence of firearms in the hands of gang members is a real legitimate problem.
Today, the federal government pledged $390 million over the next 5 years to renew a program that helps police combat gangs and guns.
I firmly believe that the only way we are going to reduce gun violence and to stop crime is if we move forward with 3 things: strong borders, strong laws and enforcement, and strong prevention.
The government's gun control legislation, proposed nearly a year ago, is part of that strategy. Bill C-21 would ban some assault-style rifles and freeze handgun sales.
This is a nuclear option.
The Conservatives oppose the bill and are now livid the Liberals want to cut the debate short.
The fact that they're severely limiting debate in that regard and forcing this through, I think is deeply, deeply concerning, certainly to the democratic process.
While the NDP are accusing the Tories of obstructing the process.
Inconceivably, the Conservatives seem to be siding with criminals rather than siding with the important public policy that would allow law enforcement more tools to crack down on these criminals that are using ghost guns.
This gun bill has faced fierce opposition, with the government even forced to withdraw an amendment in February after gun advocates said it would affect commonly used hunting rifles. Gun control advocates have also criticized the bill, as they say it falls short of a complete ban on assault rifles. Sandy?
Kevin in Ottawa, thank you. And we learned today that former Liberal Cabinet Minister Marc Lalonde has died. Lalonde was the right-hand man to then Prime Minister Pierre Elliott Trudeau. The two joined at the hip politically. Lalonde was a mainstay of the administration as advisor and later as an MP holding multiple cabinet portfolios, including Justice and Finance Minister.
If it pleases him, I can tell him that I am seriously considering a tax increase, seriously considering a tax decrease, seriously considering maintaining the deficit where it is, seriously considering increasing it, or seriously...
Mark Lalonde's sense of humor on display during question period. He died Sunday, age 93. Coming up, a cold case breakthrough. Investigators link a murder in Montreal to a suspect in West Virginia. Plus,
I thought that I was going to die there.
Snacks that saved a stranded woman for 5 long days. An Ontario judge has sentenced a man who threw gravel at the Prime Minister to 90 days of house arrest and 1 year probation.
No comment.
Shane Marshall hurled stones at Justin Trudeau during a London, Ontario election stop in 2021. The 26-year-old had earlier apologized without naming the Prime Minister. The judge called Marshall's actions a manifestation of mob mentality. Well, police in Quebec may be ready to close the file on a 48-year-old cold case. It involves the disappearance and murder of a 16-year-old girl. DNA evidence left on her clothing has led investigators to a suspect south of the border with a long criminal record. CTV's Vanessa Lee has the story.
This is where Quebec investigators are close to solving a murder that has haunted them for nearly half a century. A West Virginia cemetery 1,300 kilometers away.
It was really a special moment. I've had thoughts for the family who had been waiting for nearly 48 years.
Authorities exhumed the body of Franklin Romine after DNA evidence linked him to the death of 16-year-old Sharon Pryor. The teenager was supposed to meet friends at a Montreal pizzeria on March 29, 1975, but never showed up. Police later found her body in a field. She had been beaten and raped. The killing shook the community and eventually turned into one of Quebec's most high-profile cold cases. Police looked at more than 100 suspects but never made an arrest. They say new investigative techniques led them to Romine, an American who died 7 years after the murder.
He was fitting the description that the witness gave in 1975. He also had a very extensive criminal record of violent crime, also for a sexual assault.
Romine's family objected to the exhumation, as Longueuil police requested a court order testifying the killer left his DNA on Pryor's clothing.
To confirm once and for all that he is the killer of Sharon Pryor. We only want to ease the pain of the victim's family.
It's hard to imagine Yvonne Pryor's pain.
Where is my daughter?
For decades, her life has been consumed by the search for answers.
Amputation of my soul. That's all I can say. It was when that happened with my daughter, I just fell apart.
Yvonne Pryor is now 85 years old. It's expected the case will be closed when lab results are back within the next couple of weeks. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
RCMP in Manitoba are investigating a case of arson that was captured by a home surveillance camera. It shows 2 people dousing a pair of parked cars in liquid on a driveway before setting them on fire. A family was home at the time and sleeping in a community north of Winnipeg. Police say the incident does not appear to be targeted. Still ahead, the enlistment initiative that enticed the Little Prince to take a big step. Young Canadian hockey star Connor Bedard has learned where he will likely play next season.
The first overall selection in the 2023 NHL draft belongs to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago won the prize top pick in next month's draft, giving them the right to select Bedard. The 17-year-old from North Vancouver scored 71 goals for the Regina Pats junior team this year. He also led Canada to a World Junior title. A major Canadian rock band is calling it quits.
Faster we're falling, we're stopping and stalling, we're running in circles again.
Sum 41 announced today they will split up after the release of their final album and one more world tour. Well, a nationwide volunteer initiative in Britain today closed out a weekend of coronation festivities. Thousands of charities took part in the big help out, including some young royals. On his first ever royal engagement, Prince Louis helped renovate a hut for scouts. The 5-year-old had a go at operating a digger, assisted by his dad, the Prince of Wales. Siblings Princess Charlotte and Prince George also pitched in. And help arrived at just the right moment for a tanker truck driver in Kenya. He was trapped when a flash flood hit the Sabaki River, knocking his truck on its side. Fortunately, a helicopter crew from a wildlife conservation group managed to rescue the driver, who had been stuck for hours. After the break, lost in the wild with unusual stuff in her survival kit. An Australian woman has a lot to be thankful for after a frightening ordeal. She spent 5 days lost in the wilderness after taking a wrong turn, and she owes her survival in part to some rather unconventional supplies. CTV's Melanie Nagy explains.
Hundreds of kilometers north of Melbourne sits the striking Mitta Valley. It's a place popular with people looking to explore Australia's backcountry. It's also a place where the bush can be thick and wild, something Lillian Ip discovered firsthand. Ip was recently rescued after spending 5 long days lost in the wilderness.
And I thought that I was going to die there.
The 48-year-old was vacationing near the outdoorsy town of Bright. While in the area, she decided to take a short road trip to a remote lake, but she took a wrong turn, lost cell service, and got stuck in muddy terrain, where she waited for help with nothing but a blanket, juice box, and a bottle of wine purchased for her mum.
I was about to give up.
Ip also had some candies which helped her stomach the wine. You see, not only does she not drink alcohol, she hates the taste.
No, not at all.
And you had to drink it?
I have to drink it.
How was
I've got no choice.
On her 4th day stranded, Ip started to feel weak and was losing hope. So she wrote a heartbreaking goodbye letter to her family, telling them she loved them. Thankfully, it never had to be delivered.
Lillian Ip survived on...
Because the very next day, her car was spotted by police. Once safe, she admits the first thing she wanted was water.
And a cigarette. Thank God the women policewomen, they have a cigarette.
After her smoke, she was taken to hospital and treated for dehydration. From there, she was reunited with her family, who made her promise never to go on a solo adventure again. Melanie Nagy, CTV News, Vancouver.
And that is our newscast for this Monday. Thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. For Omar and all of us here at CTV National News, have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.